A front yard can be completely weed-free, freshly mulched, and watered right on schedule, and still look only half done from the street. You've probably driven past a house like that. Nothing is wrong with it. The grass is cut, the flowers are alive, somebody clearly cares. And yet the whole front reads as flat. The house sits up there, and below it is a low strip of color and a lot of mulch, and your eye just slides right off the whole thing. That flat look almost always comes down to one missing ingredient, and it isn't another tray of flowers. It's shrubs. Height, mass, and a few shapes the eye can actually rest on. A front yard starts to look finished the moment something in the bed stands up, repeats, and holds its shape when the flowers aren't doing the work. And the part most people get wrong is which shrubs do that job and where they go. Here's why late June is a good time to look at this honestly. The big spring push is mostly over. The early bloom has faded, the tulips are a memory, and what's left in front of the house is whatever has real structure. If your front bed looks thin right now, that's not a failure, it's information. It's showing you exactly which spots are carrying nothing but green and mulch once the flowers step back. A front that looks finished from the curb usually has three things working together. There's something tall at a corner or the end of the bed that gives the planting a top. There's a repeated middle layer along the foundation that gives it a body. And there's a lower edge along the walkway or the front of the bed that gives it a clean bottom line. Three simple jobs. When even one of them is missing, the whole thing reads as unfinished, no matter how healthy the plants are. There's one more piece people skip, and it's the difference between a yard that looks settled all year and one that looks abandoned every January. Evergreen versus deciduous. A front planting made entirely of plants that drop their leaves will look great in summer and completely blank in winter, right when the bare house needs the most help. You want at least one thing in that bed holding green or holding shape through the cold months. And the single most expensive mistake, the one that turns a good plan into years of work, is buying by the nursery pot instead of the mature size. That cute little shrub in the 1-gallon container has a grown-up size printed on the tag, and that number is the one that matters. Plant for what it becomes, not for how it looks the day you bring it home. Get that wrong and you either bury the house or spend every summer hacking everything into green meatballs. So as we go through these, pay attention to three things for each one: your zone, the sun it needs, and where in the front it actually belongs. Shrub number 1, Ninebark. Picture the corner of your house where the foundation bed turns, and there's usually a sad little nothing happening. That corner is begging for some height and some color that isn't a flower. That's the job Ninebark was built for. Ninebark, Physocarpus opulifolius, is a tough North American native, and the modern varieties are grown for their leaf color more than their bloom. The dark types like Diabolo and Summer Wine carry deep burgundy, almost black foliage from spring through fall. And the gold types, like Dart's Gold, go bright chartreuse. Either way, you get a strong block of color that holds all season long, which is exactly what an anchor at a house corner needs to do. In late spring, it puts out small white to pink flower clusters, and after that, the peeling, cinnamon-colored bark gives it some presence even in winter. It's hardy across much of the northern and middle part of the country, often around zones 3 through 7 or 8, depending on the cultivar and site. And it earns its reputation as a tough, problem spot shrub. It handles clay, wet ground, dry ground, and poor soil better than most shrubs you'll find at the garden center. The full-size types reach 5 to 8 feet, so for a smaller corner, look for a compact version like Tiny Wine that tops out around 3 to 4 feet. The mistake people make is planting the dark leaf types in shade. In real yards, that burgundy color depends on full sun. Tuck Diabolo into a shady corner and it slides toward a muddy green-purple, and you lose the whole reason you bought it. Give it at least 6 hours of sun and the color stays deep. One regional note worth knowing before you buy. Ninebark doesn't love heat and humidity. In the southern edge of its range, give it a little afternoon relief, and do not expect the dark foliage to look as dramatic in heat and humidity as it does farther north. If you garden in the deep south, Oakleaf hydrangea or Inkberry holly may be the easier shrub to build around. If that's you, don't force it. The next shrub is the one that actually prefers your climate. If the spot you're trying to fill is on the shadier side of the house, the corner that loses the sun by early afternoon, this is your anchor. Shrub number 2, Oakleaf hydrangea. Oakleaf hydrangea, Hydrangea quercifolia, is the native hydrangea from the southeastern United States, and it's the one most homeowners have never tried. It gives you 4 seasons out of a single plant, which is rare. Big cone-shaped white flower clusters in early summer, then those large oak-shaped leaves that turn deep burgundy and red in fall. And after the leaves drop, cinnamon brown bark that peels in strips and gives the winter front something to look at. It tolerates more shade than almost any flowering shrub on this list. The kind of dappled light under a high tree or along a north-facing wall where other things stall out. It's hardy in zones 5 through 9, and this is one of the best hydrangeas for gardeners in the hot, humid south, especially in part shade, where some other hydrangeas need more careful placement. The species runs 4 to 8 feet, and there are tidy dwarfs like peewee and ruby slippers in the 3 to 4 foot range for a smaller foundation bed. Now the mistake, and this one quietly costs people a whole year of bloom. Oakleaf hydrangea sets its flower buds on old wood, meaning the growth from the previous summer. If you tidy it up by cutting it back in late winter or early spring, the way you might with other shrubs, you cut off this year's flowers before they ever open. The fix is simple. If it needs shaping at all, prune it right after it finishes blooming in summer, and otherwise, leave it alone. It barely needs pruning anyway. One safety note for pet owners. Hydrangeas are toxic to dogs and cats if they chew on the foliage or flowers. It's usually limited to stomach upset rather than anything dramatic. But if you've got a dog that samples the landscaping, place this where they can't and keep an eye on it. That covers the tall corners. The next plant is about the long middle stretch of the bed, the part that runs under your front windows, and it's the one that keeps the whole front from going blank in winter. Here's the layer most front yards are missing, and it's the reason so many of them look stripped down by January. You need something evergreen carrying the middle of the bed. Flowers come and go. Deciduous shrubs go bare. An evergreen mass is what holds the planting together when nothing else is showing up. Shrub number 3, Inkberry holly. For a long time, the default answer to that was boxwood, and boxwood has gotten risky. Boxwood blight has spread through a lot of the country, and once it's in an area, it's hard to keep out of a planting. The native swap that gives you the same look without that worry is Inkberry holly, Ilex glabra. It's a broadleaf evergreen native to the eastern and south-central U.S., hardy in zones 4 or 5 through 9, happy in full sun to part shade, and unusually good with wet or soggy soil that would rot other shrubs. The small dark green leaves read a lot like boxwood. It grows faster than boxwood, and it isn't bothered by boxwood blight. Planted in a repeated row along the foundation, it gives you that calm, clipped, finished green line under the windows all 12 months of the year. The one thing you have to get right is the variety. The old straight species has a habit of dropping its lower leaves as it ages and going bare-legged at the bottom, which looks rough in a foundation bed. The newer, compact cultivars were bred specifically to fix that. Look for gembox, strongbox, or shamrock. They stay dense down to the ground and hold that full, rounded shape with very little work. A couple of practical notes. Inkberry can produce small black berries, but only female plants fruit, and only if there's a male nearby. So in most front yard plantings, it simply won't fruit, which is fine since you're growing it for the evergreen structure anyway. And if it does fruit, know that holly berries are on the toxic list for dogs and cats, and they can make a small child sick if eaten, so it's worth being aware of with the small berries on any holly. That's your year-round backbone. The next plant sits in the same middle layer, but brings color and contrast that an evergreen can't. Shrub number 4, Weigela. Most people think of Weigela as a flower shrub. It blooms, you enjoy the blooms, and then it spends the rest of the year as background green. That's the old version. The modern dark leaf types flip that completely. With these, the foliage is the point, and the bloom is the bonus. Varieties like wine and roses carry deep burgundy, almost black leaves from the time they leaf out in spring, all the way through October, with a wave of bright pink trumpet-shaped flowers in late spring that hummingbirds work over. The contrast between those near black leaves and the bright flowers is strong enough that people stop and ask what it is. Set against the green of an inkberry or the dark mass of a ninebark, that foliage gives your foundation run a rhythm of color that lasts long after any flower is gone. Weigela is reliable in zones 4 through 8. For that dark foliage to stay saturated, it wants full sun, at least 6 hours. In too much shade, the burgundy washes out toward olive green, and you lose the contrast. Wine and Roses runs about 4 to 6 feet, but the series gives you sizes for any spot. Midnight Wine stays under 2 feet for a tight space, and Spilled Wine mounds low and wide, which makes it useful right at the front edge. The mistake here is the same timing trap as the hydrangea. Weigela blooms on old wood, on growth from the previous summer. If you prune it in early spring with everything else, you cut off this year's flowers. The right move is to prune it lightly right after the spring bloom finishes. That clears the way for fresh growth that becomes next year's flowering wood. One more reason it earns a spot up front. Weigela is one that deer tend to leave alone. That's not a guarantee, and hungry deer in a hard winter will test almost anything. But where browsing pressure is moderate, it usually gets passed over while the tulips and hostas get eaten. So far, we've built the tall corners and the repeated middle. The next plant adds something you can't see in a photo, but absolutely notice in person, and it's the one to put where you'll actually walk past it. Shrub number 5, Viburnum. The thing you notice in person, the one that never shows up in a listing photo, is fragrance. And the best fragrant shrub to put right where you walk past it, by the front steps, under a window you open in spring, along the path to the door, is Viburnum. Here's the catch with Viburnum, and it's the reason a lot of people end up disappointed. It isn't one plant, it's a huge family. Walk into a garden center and ask for a Viburnum, and you could walk out with any of a dozen completely different shrubs, different sizes, different bloom, some fragrant and some not. So you don't shop for Viburnum. You shop for a specific one. For fragrance up by the house, the one to know is Korean spice viburnum, Viburnum carlesi. In mid to late spring, it opens clusters of pink buds into white flowers with a sweet, spicy scent that honestly rivals lilac. And it does it on a tidy, rounded shrub that runs about 4 to 8 feet and turns wine red in fall. It's hardy roughly in zones 4 through 8. One smart upgrade. A close cousin called Judd Viburnum, Viburnum juddii, gives you nearly the same fragrance with better resistance to the leaf spot problems that sometimes bother Korean spice. If you can find Judd, it's often the better buy. If what you need is durable structure rather than perfume, the native arrowwood viburnum, Viburnum dentatum, is one of the toughest, most adaptable shrubs you can plant. It shrugs off clay, wet ground, and part shade, and its blue-black fall berries are a serious food source for birds. It runs broad and upright and makes a great neutral green backdrop or an informal screen at the edge of the front yard. 2 practical notes. First, if you want those berries for the birds, know that most viburnums need cross-pollination to fruit well. A single plant will flower but barely set fruit. You need a second, genetically different plant of the same species, a different cultivar or a seed-grown one, blooming at the same time nearby. Second, there's an insect called the viburnum leaf beetle that's a real problem in parts of the Northeast and Midwest, and it strongly prefers arrowwood and the cranberry bush types. If that beetle is active in your area, lean toward Korean spice, Judd, or double-file viburnum, which it tends to leave alone. Your county extension office can tell you in about 30 seconds whether it's a concern where you are. Like the hydrangea and the Weigela, Korean spice blooms on old wood, so if it needs any shaping, do it right after it flowers. That's the planting up against the house handled. The last 2 shrubs are about the lowest layer, the front edge along the walkway, and this is where a lot of people quietly make a mistake that follows them for years. Shrub number 6, Virginia sweetspire. For the low edge of a front bed, especially where the soil stays a little moist or the house gives you part shade, Virginia sweetspire is one of the better shrubs most homeowners walk right past. The compact form most people should look for is Little Henry. It gives you a low, mounding shrub, usually around 2 to 3 feet tall, with fragrant white flower spikes in late spring to early summer, and some of the best red-orange fall color you can get from a shrub this size. It works along a walkway, at the front of a foundation bed, or in that slightly damp corner where the mulch always stays darker than the rest of the bed. This is not a stiff, formal edging plant. It has a softer, natural look, which is exactly why it helps a front yard look finished without looking overdone. Use 3 of the same cultivar in a curve or along a walkway, and the bed suddenly has a lower line your eye can follow. The honest caveat is spread. Virginia sweetspire can sucker, especially where it is happy, so give it room or keep a clean edge with a spade once or twice a year. If you need a perfectly tight little ball, this is not your shrub. If you want a low native shrub with flowers, fall color, and enough body to replace a row of annuals, it earns the spot. This is also where I would be careful with Japanese spirea, even though you will see it everywhere. The colored foliage types like Magic Carpet and the Double Play series can make a front edge look polished fast, but Spirea japonica is invasive or problematic in parts of the eastern United States, especially around natural areas and waterways. If it is flagged in your state, skip it. Virginia sweetspire, dwarf fothergilla, or native meadow sweets are the better direction. That solves the edge in most of the country. But if you garden where winter is genuinely brutal, the next plant is the one that keeps flowering at the front of the bed when almost nothing else will. Shrub number 7, Potentilla. If you're up north, in Minnesota, the Dakotas, northern New England, the high mountain west, you already know the frustration. Half the shrubs people rave about online aren't reliably hardy where you live, and the ones that survive often quit blooming by midsummer. This is the front edge plant for you. Potentilla, also called shrubby cinquefoil, Potentilla fruticosa, is one of the coldest hardy flowering shrubs you can buy. It's reliable down through Zone 2, which covers the parts of the country that wipe out a lot of the competition. It stays low and tidy, usually 1 to 3 feet, and it covers itself in small flowers, classic yellow on the species, with white, pink, and orange in the cultivars, from early summer right through the first hard frost. No deadheading, no fussing. What makes it a front-edge workhorse is what it tolerates: lean soil, rocky ground, dry strips, road salt, alkaline dirt. That hot, dry, miserable strip by the driveway or around the mailbox where everything else fries? Potentilla is one of the few flowering shrubs that genuinely prefers those lean conditions over rich, pampered ground. Give it full sun, and in hot regions a little afternoon shade actually keeps it blooming longer. The honest limit is the opposite end of the country. Potentilla does not enjoy heat and humidity, and extension guides specifically advise against it south of about Zone 7. In the deep south, it tends to struggle and look ragged, so this is a northern and mountain plant first. The one bit of upkeep it asks for is renewal pruning. Left alone for too many years, it gets woody and tired in the center and flowers less. The fix is easy. Cut out the oldest third of the stems in late winter, or every few years cut the whole plant back hard. It looks drastic for about a month, and then comes back full and blooms like nothing happened. Do that occasionally, and it stays much fresher instead of turning into a tired, woody clump. And deer tend to pass it by. Those 7 cover most front yards, but let me give you 3 swaps for specific situations, because the right plant depends on your conditions, not on a list. If you want a green shape that truly never goes bare, not even in February, reach for a dwarf conifer as your anchor instead of a deciduous shrub. A dwarf globe blue spruce, a compact hinoki cypress, or a rounded arborvitae like the one sold as Mr. Bowling Ball gives you a permanent evergreen form at a house corner. Just read the tag for the cultivar's real mature size and its zone, because dwarf covers a wide range. If the front of your house is shady and the soil stays moist, Virginia sweetspire, Itea virginica, is a better fit than most of this list. It's a native, it carries fragrant white bottlebrush flowers, and its fall color is some of the best you'll get. The one caution is that it can sucker and spread, so give it room or keep a clean edge on it. And if you want non-stop color on a hot sunny edge, a compact shrub rose like the knockout or drift types will bloom from June to frost with very little input. I'd just be straight with you about the trade-offs. Deer love roses, so these are not a deer-resistant choice. The thorns are a real nuisance right along a walkway where people brush past. They want a hard cutback in early spring to stay vigorous. And rose rosette disease has become a serious problem for landscape roses in a lot of the country. So check whether it's active in your area before you plant a whole row of them. Now the part that ties all of this together. Because owning 7 good shrubs doesn't help if they're scattered around like separate purchases. The recipe for a front that reads as finished is simpler than most people expect. 1 anchor, tall, placed at a house corner or the end of the bed. 1 repeated mid-height mass along the foundation, the same shrub used in a group of 3 or 5, not one of each. And 1 low edge running along the walkway or the front of the bed. Anchor, mass, edge. That's the whole structure. Set the heights so they stair-step from tall at the back or the corner down to low at the front, instead of everything sitting at the same level like a hedge. The eye reads a stepped planting as designed and a flat one as filler. Repeat. This is the single biggest thing, and it costs nothing. 3 of the same shrub in a group always looks more deliberate than 3 different shrubs in a row. That feeling of an expensive, finished yard almost never comes from rare or pricey plants. It comes from repetition and structure. It's thought applied, not money spent. Make sure at least one piece is evergreen, so the front doesn't empty out in winter. And buy by the mature size on the tag, not by the cute size in the pot. Space for what the plant becomes, and you'll never be the person sawing everything back every July just to see the windows. I'd like to know what you're working with. Drop your USDA zone in the comments and tell me which part of your front is the thin spot. The corner that needs height? The run under the windows that needs a repeated mass? Or the walkway edge that needs a clean bottom line? The zone plus the specific spot makes the comments genuinely useful to everyone else reading through with the same problem. And if you'd rather hear where a plant actually belongs before you spend money on it, instead of just a list of names, that's the kind of thing this channel is for. Subscribing keeps it close when you're standing in the bed wondering what to do with it. You don't need all 7. Start with the one gap that bothers you most. If the front looks flat, put one anchor at a corner and watch how the whole thing stands up. If it goes blank every winter, add one evergreen mass under the windows. If the walkway looks unfinished, run one low edge along it. One well-placed shrub changes how everything around it reads. And that's the difference between a yard that's merely alive and one that finally looks like someone meant it.